Hello everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. I am so happy to be back here today. I've missed talking with you all. I've missed I think I just need to work now. So listen, how do you like my new background? I've got curtains. I've got another curtain underneath the curtain. But here's the big question and I need your help. So, you see it's blue? Do you prefer blue or purple? Blue, purple. I can't decide. So I think I like the blue because my background is always purple. But anyway, let me know what you think below, blue or purple. And you know what? Do it with a blue or purple heart because I need to see it visually. You know what I mean? So, hi, it's Monday. I hope you had an amazing holiday season, whatever it is you chose to do. I know in the UK here, some of us from Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, went straight into tier 4. And for those of you who are in tier 4 over Christmas, I hope you are okay. I hope you are reaching out to people as much as you can. And I hope my videos can be a form of escape for you. So saying that, if you've never been here before on a Monday, this is where I kind of take a break from, makeup, but I don't, but I do. Talking about makeup anyway. And today is a day I sit down and create a look based on like a way to die. Usually they're like impossible ways to die. And my wonderful exclusive group of people that watch these videos send in their ghost stories, paranormal experiences, weird experiences for me to read. If you have any yourself, please send them right here to this email address and I will read them out here on these videos. Okay. And as I always like to say, this series is very much based on Bailey Saren's Murder Mystery Makeup Mondays. I'll leave a link to her channel below, although I'm very sure you know who she is already. Can I just say, I've seen so many videos pop up of people doing things on Mondays, like movie and makeup Mondays, history and makeup Mondays, and I absolutely love it. I love having something else along with makeup. It just adds something different, a bit of depth. Okay, so today's theme of dying is this, and somebody commented this below, some kind of tangling in. They suggested that I do, because a few videos before this, my set was falling down, my curtains were falling down, it was falling off a wall. So they suggested that my set fell off and killed me. I was like, that's such a good idea. So inspired by that and my not being able to decide whether I want a purple or blue background, here's the story. I was sitting here just going purple, blue, and then or both. And I just went crazy and I started ripping down my curtains like, no, but everything fell on me and then I died. So today we're doing a purple you knew I was purple and blue look. And I recently bought all of these palettes from ColourPop that come in like the set. I love their like vaults, so I'm going to use all of them. And I bought these like dreamery Super Shock eyeshadows, which are some of my absolute favourite eyeshadow texture. So I'm going to be using them. I am an affiliate with them now, which actually happened after I bought these. Could have used my own discount code, but no, I'm joking. I have a discount code below for 10% off. Yeah, so if you want to use it, you can. If not, just don't, I guess. So yeah, that's what's going to happen. And I recently also bought, these are like my days just to try makeup, the Trixie Mattel blush palettes from Trixie Cosmetics. I've never tried Trixie Cosmetics before, so I have those and a lip gloss as well, so I'm very excited to try. So yeah, let's just do it. Dying from a set falling down. So I'm going to be dipping into these two palettes from ColourPop. These are, I lilac hue a lot and it's my pleasure. Oh, no, it's mine. And I have this Blue Moon palette and the On Cloud Blue palette as well. So we're going to be dipping into those. Let's do it. Yes. Just before we get into today's video, I need to keep trying to remember to do this. Disclaimer, these stories deal with death, any way you can think of, any age person dying, and it can deal with some very, very dark situations. So trigger warning, if you are sensitive to those kind of situations, then I would advise you maybe not to watch this or watch it at a time when you feel comfortable doing so. So our first story today is called Mum and the 4 a.m. Dishwasher. It says, thank you so much for your makeup tips. You're welcome. I got married last Saturday and wanted to do my own for my wedding, but I struggled so much with it because I was watching all the wrong videos. Then I discovered you and I dramatically improved within a short amount of time. Thank you so much. My absolute pleasure. Congratulations. That's amazing. When I was 7, on December the 2nd, 1997, I lost my mum. She had a heart attack from a blood clot at only 38 years old. She was a great mother, hard-working, and so loving, and I miss her terribly. We lived in a house that my dad built for her at the time. What I remember about my mother the most is her smell, makeup, perfume, tanning lotion, and nail polish. She was constantly keeping herself up on those things, so it was just her natural smell. I also remember that when she wasn't working, she was constantly cooking and cleaning. She worked third shift at an appliance factory, so she usually came home around 4 a.m. in the morning. Ooh. I remember every morning as I lay in bed, sleeping, I always woke up to the sound of her clinging pots and pans, the popping noise the dishwasher made when she opened and closed it. She always unloaded and loaded the dishwasher when she came in, and then she would get in the tanning bed and fall asleep until we got out of bed. About a week or so after she passed, I remember I would wake up out of habit around the usual time, but hear nothing. And it always made me sad to know that she wasn't there anymore. And that's just how it really hit me hard. Then a month or so later, I remember Dad getting me into bed that night, but this particular day, I was missing my mum a lot. I told my dad how much I missed her, and he sat down on my bed, talked to me about her, and told me that she'd always be with me, and things like that. I went to bed as usual. But then at the usual time of 4 a.m., I woke up, just like I did when my mum was alive, to the sound of pots and pans, and doors shutting and a dishwasher popping. I even smelt her scent. I remember my heart pounding when I came around from my sleep and realized that this wasn't routine anymore and that it wasn't supposed to be happening. So I got out of bed, as scared as I was, and looked out of my doorway. I could see the kitchen from my room and saw nothing and heard nothing anymore. When I saw the coast was clear, I decided to see if maybe it was my dad that I heard, as I couldn't smell her scent anymore. When I looked into his room, I saw him laying in bed, snoring, as if he had been asleep all night long. I asked my dad the next morning, did he get up that night? And he told me that he didn't. Now that I'm older, I really don't know if it was real or not, but I will never forget it. And I do like to think it was her trying to tell me everything is okay and that she is still with me. That's so cute. I think that was it too. That's such a nice way of letting you know she's still there, you know, rather than appearing at the end of your bed or chasing you down a hall. Like most incidences we hear about. A nice subtle way to be like, it's comforting, and those kind of things that you remember, like all those noises, those smells, are really comforting. So that's really cute. Thank you so much for your story. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we have our first audio. This is called Murder House.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about the house at the end of the street. They all heard the stories and the screams coming from within as they walked by. They all just left it alone because nobody had been in the house for years. The house contained many dark secrets that nobody dared to question because they were all too afraid. Through the hundreds of years that the house has remained untouched, inside the spirits were constantly causing more and more mischief. Mindy was obsessed with the house and wanted nothing more than to go inside and figure out what or who was actually there. She began to gain more and more confidence as she moved towards the house. It was only a few feet away from her. A couple more steps and she would have all the answers she'd been looking for. As she inched her way closer, she felt a strong wave of sadness rush all throughout her body. Immediately after, she felt another wave of emotion, this time of happiness and excitement. She knew that something in the house was very angry that she was there and wanted her to leave. But there was also something happy that she was there. So she decided to keep on and slowly opened the front door. It was as dark inside as a funeral scarf. She saw what she thought was a set of stairs and a small table. As she walked further inside to investigate, she felt a strong gust of wind behind her and heard a loud slam. She looked around and the door had shut by itself. She now knew that she wasn't alone. "Hello?" she called. There was no response. She carefully walked towards the table in search of some type of light source. She felt around the table and finally found a candlestick and a box of matches. After lighting the candle, she picked it up and started to inspect the house. Walking around, she heard distant footsteps, and once she originated where the sound was coming from, up the stairs she went. Heading up, she walked slowly, because each step was creaking and moaning beneath her. Trying to be as quiet as possible, she finally made it up to the top and found a bunch of rooms, all with closed doors. She looked up and saw that the ceiling was covered with cobwebs. The house was free of all noise except for the footsteps she'd heard moments before. She started to channel in on the sound. Then she realized that the footsteps were actually water drops coming from the room right in front of her, possibly from a leaky faucet. So she walked forward and opened the door. Mindy walked in the room and looked around. The entire room was dim and gray. She felt uneasy about walking in, but she needed answers. Fueled by her insane desires, she walked inside to inspect the leaky faucet. She targeted the sink and realized that there was no water coming from it at all, and there hadn't been in years. She looked up into the mirror and became so afraid she started to question why she was so obsessed with this house. She soon understood why everyone else left the house alone and why the house was vacant for so many years. What she saw next was unimaginable. Mindy screamed in terror as she watched a hand wrap around the curtain from the shower behind her and slowly pulled it open. Too afraid to move, Mindy stood in shock, screaming and staring, just waiting for the hand to reveal a woman. Mindy stopped screaming when she realized that the woman looked very sad. She had an eerie blue tint to her. Her hair was long and dark, and she was wearing an all-gray dress. She was beautiful. She had no shoes on her feet, and Mindy felt the need to turn around to get a better look at this beautifully mysterious woman. And as soon as she did, the figure was within inches from her face. Mindy jumped and then calmed down when the woman said, "Help me, please, please, please help me." Mindy noticed that the woman wasn't even looking her in the eyes. She was looking just above her head. It's like she couldn't make eye contact with her. Soon, Mindy realized the woman was there to distract her because a rope had appeared from midair with a noose on the end. Mindy screamed and started crying as the rope wrapped around her throat all on its own. There was nobody there moving the rope, not even the shower figure standing before her. Mindy looked back towards the woman and saw her staring straight into her eyes, grinning. "Thank you. You've helped me," she said in the calmest, softest voice. As the rope then tightened around her throat, and as Mindy struggled for air, the woman floated up to where she was being hung, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "Now I finally have a friend." The end. Thank you, Robert, so much for sharing my video today. This was a story I wrote for my speech class in senior year of high school. I wrote it and gave the speech on November 29th, 2018. I would love the feedback, and thank you so much for sharing my story. Bye!
That was so cool. I was so scared. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. That was so cool. It's such a good storyteller. You definitely gave me goosebumps and had me on the edge of my seat there. That was so cool. Thank you so much. So tell me roughly, how much would someone have to pay you to go into a haunted house alone and spend the night by yourself? And it's definitely haunted. Like 100%. Okay, our next story is called Don't Open It. Open what, I wonder? So it says, "Hey Robert, I love your channel and I just figured I'd share my freaky encounter on Halloween night a few years ago. I rarely speak about this story because to this day it still freaks me out, but I figured I'd freak you out as well because at least now we're both terrified." Thank you, I appreciate it. "One night after a day at work, I was just relaxing. Per the usual, I was staying up late. So I was just hanging out in the living room, watching Netflix. Sadly, that day I wasn't handing out candy because I was living on an upstairs floor of a duplex, so no one was able to knock on my door. Around midnight, I heard 3 knocks and 3 children. I don't know how I knew it was 3 children, but my gut told me it was 3 children, laughing maliciously. This is unusual because they would have to open up the front door and walk up the stairs to my apartment. I got up, confused, and went to open the door before an elderly woman's voice whispered rather loudly in my ear, "Don't open it." Immediately, I felt a tightness in my chest, and even now I feel a tightness speaking about this, and froze right in front of my door. After about a minute, though it felt like 30 hours, honestly, the giggling stopped, but no footsteps receded. And I felt like I could finally walk. So I walked into the kitchen and I put salt in front of my front door. The next day, I told my friend, who is practically a witch, about our encounter. She flat out told me I was probably saved by the old lady that died in my apartment, and that it was probably the black-eyed children visiting me. I still to this day don't know who warned me or who was knocking on my door, and I have never had another problem with unknown knocking or the older lady speaking to me. Days before moving out of that apartment, I learned from my old roommate that the downstairs neighbour used to try and summon demons in the basement in their storage room that they had blocked off. This explained why in the year I lived there, my depression and suicidal thoughts worsened and improved once I moved out into a new apartment. Needless to say, I avoid that area of town as much as possible, and I will drive about 2 blocks around it. I've got enough drama in my life without demons and black-eyed children bothering me. Yes, that really did scare me, so thank you in the best way possible. That was such a great story. Thank you so much. So what are we doing? Powder. So of course, as is custom, next we have Marcus reading us a story. Let me find it first. Here we go. I need to turn it down because it's usually really loud. Okay, let's go.
Hi. This first story is called, rather cutely, Scared Hamster. Hi Robert, I've been watching you for a while now, and your videos always make my day. I've always been intuitive, and feel I can sense whenever there is a presence around me. Over the years, I always recall hearing noises in my house. Doors shutting, footsteps when home alone, things disappearing into other rooms, but my mum is easily scared of the supernatural, so I decided it was best to leave her out of it. A few years back, during the summer holidays, I was up late at night watching a horror movie when all of a sudden I felt someone was watching me. I tried to brush it off, but it wouldn't go away. I tried to distract myself by watching comedies, and it worked a little, but the presence was still there. After an hour of this, I got fed up and decided to do some research into what could be causing this feeling. I came across a forum that talks about people who have extremely good intuition and can feel ghosts' presence. Right as I was reading this, the lights in my bedroom completely went out. I tried to calm myself down and rationalise what had happened, but I was so scared. At that time I had a hamster who all of a sudden got terrified by something she saw. She hissed and ran into her little house and didn't come out again until the morning, which is very odd as hamsters are nocturnal and normally she would have been very active at night. She had been staring at my wardrobe door before doing this. I instantly moved far away from the door with my chandelier shattered on the floor. Glass everywhere. I finally had enough and ran to my brother's room and didn't sleep in that room again for months. The second story is called Dogman. Hi Robert, first off I would like to say I absolutely adore you and your channel. I live in the northwest and for a while back in 2011, when I was 16, I lived up in the mountainous area. I was about 30 minutes away from a small town in a more forested area. We had only lived there for a few months when one night around 2 a.m. I heard a tap and a scratch on my window. It sounded like a nail going tap, tap, scratch. I got so scared that I jumped out of bed away from my window. I couldn't even look because I had this strange feeling like I would have seen something, and my instinct was to stay completely still. After a couple of minutes I didn't hear anything. I didn't want to wake my mum. And I also didn't want to have to walk through my house in the dark because we had a lot of big open windows, so I convinced myself to get back into bed and try and sleep. The next day I checked the outside to see if there was maybe tree branches that could have hit the window, or if there was any footprints, and found no evidence of either. Later that day I went to my, at the time, boyfriend's house and was explaining to his mum, who is half Native American, what had happened the night before. She froze completely when I told her about the tapping and scratching, and asked me immediately if I'd looked. When I told her no, she seemed slightly relieved, but she would never tell me what she was thinking. She just gave me some sage to burn around my house and clear quartz to place by my window. I never had any problems again. Fast forward to 2019. My boyfriend that I'm with now shared an interest in Bigfoot, and being from the Northwest, a lot of people are. And there was a night he showed me something called Dogman. If you don't know what that is, it's basically a werewolf type of creature that are very aggressive, and almost everywhere eyewitnesses who encounter one say they thought it was going to kill and eat them. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but I think that's what it could have been, that was scratching at my window, hoping I would look, and what made my ex-boyfriend's mum not want to tell me so I wouldn't be too freaked out. I'll never be certain of what it was to this day. People I have told either think it was a tree branch, an animal, or even a person, which would still be creepy, but again, no footprints. But the more I've learnt about Dogman, the more and more it makes sense. Okay, that was scary. So, Happy New Year. And...
Oh, that's it. Oh. Yeah, oh my god, okay. I feel so bad for that hamster, poor little baby. They didn't decide they wanted to see that poor little guy. I 100% believe that animals can see stuff that we can't. So as soon as an animal is scared of something, I'm like, okay, ghost. There's no other explanation why a dog or a hamster or a cat will be hissing and looking in the corner or barking at something that you can't see. You know, other than it absolutely has to be a ghost. Hi, this story is called Feet Up the Stairs. Hello, Robert. I recently did my cousin's prom makeup, following your makeup tips and tricks. Thank you for what you do. I really enjoy your content and learn so much. Thank you so much. This is my grandmother and aunt's story. We used to live in a crowded street in Quezon City, Philippines. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I was a baby then, around 2 years old. My grandmother and aunt were lounging by the dining table around evening, eating turon for a late merenda? Snacks, it says in brackets, while waiting for my grandfather to bring home dinner. Anyway, they were in the middle of talking when they heard the pitter-patter of footsteps by the staircase. But they were the only ones in the house, aside from me, taking a nap in the upstairs bedroom. When they peeked at the foot of the staircase, they saw a pair of pale, ashen feet, no body, only feet. My grandma recalls her hairs standing up at the sight of it. She and my aunt just stared for a solid minute, neither blinking. Then the feet started running. It made a mad dash going upstairs. My grandma said the sound of its footsteps boomed through the silent apartment, echoing her own heartbeat. By the time it reached its destination, I began to cry frantically as if I'd been startled awake. My grandma and aunt chased after it. Hearing my cries, they took me from my crib and ran out the house. It was then my grandfather came home. He was confused to see them out the house, visibly shaken. They said I wouldn't stop crying for an hour. They never saw the feet again after that, but this wasn't the first time such a thing had happened in this house. Apparently there were times I would stare, no, I hate things like this, at the corner ceiling of our bedroom for long periods of time. Sometimes I would point at Sometimes I would point at whatever is there and laugh. Other times I would cry and crawl to my grandma. We have long moved out of that house. I never knew of these stories until recently, when my grandmother mentioned it in passing. Oh, isn't it strange how some apparitions are exactly that, like full-on apparitions, and some of them are just feet or a hand or a face or a head? Like, why out of all, all the body parts would you be like, no, just my feet is fine to show? Okay, well, this is our finished, killed by my own set because I can't make up my mind what color I want to choose. Look. Well, thank you so much for joining me this week. Again, let me know below if you prefer the blue or the purple background. Just do a blue or purple heart, depending. And if you don't mind, just do both. So yes, thank you so much for joining me today. Do let me know if you have any ghost stories, paranormal experiences, weird experiences. Did your house turn into like a different house after work one day? And everyone was like, but this is your normal house, Let me know by sending it just here to this email address. Thank you so much again for joining me. I will see you very soon. Bye.